Sometimes, the bravest actions come from the most unexpected places. But for Jaden Carter, a single act of heroism turns his life upside down. Location: the rough, economically deprived outskirts of Detroit, where cracked sidewalks and broken streetlights tell a story of struggle. The streets of Jaden Carter's neighborhood paint a picture of hardship. Faded graffiti covers the brick walls of closed-down stores, and stray newspapers dance with the wind along the cracked pavement. The hum of old streetlights flickering on and off is the only rhythm that accompanies the quiet footsteps of those making their way home after another exhausting day. Sometimes, the bravest actions come from the most unexpected places. But for Jaden Carter, a single act of heroism turns his life upside down. Where are you watching from, and what time is it? Jaden Carter, a 12-year-old black boy, lives with his family in a crumbling, one-bedroom rental home. The walls are thin, the heater barely works, and every creak in the floorboards reminds them of the instability of their situation. Yet, within these four walls, love holds them together. His father, Eric Carter, works exhausting hours at a gas station, returning home each night with aching limbs and grease-stained clothes. His mother, Monica, keeps the household running, stretching every dollar to make sure her children have enough to eat. Despite the struggle, they teach Jaden and his younger sister, Ava, to dream beyond their circumstances. Ava, bright-eyed and full of imagination, shares Jaden's dreams of escaping their harsh reality. They often sit by their bedroom window at night, looking out at the distant city skyline, whispering about the futures they hope to build, futures filled with opportunities beyond their neighborhood's limitations. Everything changes when Eric is injured in a fire at work, leaving him unable to provide for the family. One night, the phone rings. The news hits like a gut punch. Eric was caught in a fire at the gas station, his hands and arms burned while trying to save a coworker. The injuries are severe, and he won't be able to work for months. The household's only source of income disappears overnight. With eviction looming, the tension in the Carter home is suffocating. Bills pile up on the kitchen table, unopened envelopes filled with demands they cannot meet. The eviction notice is taped to the front door, a cruel reminder of the ticking clock counting down to homelessness. Jaden watches his mother's eyes grow weary, her once unwavering strength cracking under the weight of their reality. What would you do if your family was on the brink of losing everything? Let's talk. Jaden makes a bold decision. He will find a way to make money, no matter what. He knows no one will hand him an opportunity, so he has to create one himself. The thought of watching his mother break down, of seeing his little sister with nowhere to sleep, is more than he can bear. Whatever it takes, however hard it may be, he refuses to let his family lose everything. As he steps out onto the dimly lit streets, determination hardens in his chest. He doesn't know exactly what he will do yet, but one thing is certain: he won't let his family down. Jaden roams the streets of Detroit, offering to shovel snow or carry groceries. The biting wind stings his face as he walks along the cracked sidewalks, his boots barely holding together. The city is alive with activity. Cars honking, people rushing in and out of stores, bundled in thick coats. Jaden pulls his hoodie tighter against the cold and approaches the corner store, hoping for work. "Excuse me, sir, do you need help carrying your bags?" he asks an older man, who barely spares him a glance before shaking his head and walking away. Rejection. Again. He doesn't let it stop him. Jaden moves to the next person, then another, asking if they need assistance. Some ignore him completely. Others glance at his worn-out clothes and mumble a quick no before hurrying off. His stomach growls, but he ignores it. He's not looking for food. He's looking for a way to keep his family from losing everything. His fingers tighten inside his torn gloves, his resolve only growing stronger with every rejection. He has to find a way. Hours pass, the daylight fading into early evening. His breath comes out in short puffs as he rubs his hands together for warmth. The streets grow quieter as more people rush home, their evenings secure and planned. But for Jayden, there is no such certainty. He keeps moving, his eyes scanning the sidewalks, searching for any opportunity. That evening, he crosses paths with a woman, Agent Catherine Stone, dressed in plain clothes. Jayden kicks at a stray rock, stuffing his hands in his pockets when he notices her watching him. She's different from the others. Her gaze isn't dismissive or cold. She steps closer, her dark brown hair tucked under a beanie, her stance firm. "Kid, be careful around here. There's a dangerous group watching this area." Jayden blinks, confused. He's been walking these streets for years. Why would today be any different? "I'm just trying to help people out," he says cautiously. Agent Stone studies him for a moment, her expression unreadable. She exhales, her breath forming a white cloud in the cold air. "Just stay alert," she warns. "Not everything is what it seems." Before she can respond, the roar of an engine fills the air. A black van speeds toward them, its headlights blinding. Jayden barely has time to process what's happening before the van jumps the curb. People scream, darting out of the way. Agent Stone's eyes widen in realization. But before she can react, the van slams into her, sending her flying. The sound of metal hitting flesh is sickening. The impact lifts her off the ground, her body twisting before she crashes onto the pavement with a painful thud. A gasp catches in Jayden's throat. He watches, frozen, as the van screeches away, tires screeching against the cold pavement. People stare, but don't move. A few take out their phones, but no one rushes forward. Jayden does. His heart pounds as he sprints to Agent Stone's side, kneeling beside her. Blood pools beneath her jacket, staining the concrete. Her breath is shallow, her eyes flickering open just enough to look at him. "Run," she whispers, her voice barely audible. Jayden swallows hard, his mind racing. Run. Why? His instincts scream at him to stay, to help. But the urgency in her voice sends a chill down his spine. He glances around. Someone had done this on purpose. The question is, were they coming back? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to act fast? Let's discuss. The agent lies on the cold pavement, barely conscious. Jayden's breath comes in short gasps as he kneels beside her. Blood stains the sidewalk, pooling beneath her as her fingers twitch weakly. Her lips part as if to speak, but no words come. The streetlights flicker above them, casting long shadows across the pavement. The world feels frozen, as if time itself is holding its breath. He knows he doesn't have much time to decide. Jayden's heart pounds. Should he run? Call for help? His hands shake as he glances around. The crowd is still frozen in shock, some murmuring, others recording on their phones, but no one is moving to help. The van is gone, its tires leaving black streaks on the asphalt. But what if it comes back? What if they're watching? His mind races, but deep down he knows help isn't coming. If he wants to save her, he has to act now. Instead, he makes a decision that will change his life forever. He moves quickly, lifting her as gently as he can. She groans, her eyes fluttering open for a second before rolling back. The weight of her body is more than he expected, but he grits his teeth and tightens his grip. His muscles burn as he hoists her up, cradling her against his chest. He doesn't know where to take her, only that staying here is not an option. He grabs the injured woman, carrying her towards an abandoned alley, away from danger. His feet move instinctively, one after the other, pushing forward. The cold air bites at his skin, but he barely feels it. The alley ahead is dark, barely visible under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. He stumbles over broken glass and discarded trash, his grip tightening around her. He has to keep going. He has to get her somewhere safe. The van screeches to a stop, but Jaden isn't waiting around. A chill shoots down his spine as he hears it. Tires screeching against the pavement. A car door slamming. He doesn't turn around. He doesn't hesitate. His feet hit the ground faster, pushing through the ache in his legs. The sound of footsteps echoes behind him, heavy and fast. They're coming. As gunshots ring out, he darts through back streets, bringing her to the only place he knows, home. The first shot shatters a glass bottle near his feet, sending shards scattering across the pavement. His breath catches, but he doesn't stop. He doesn't have time to be scared. Another shot rings out, sparking against a metal dumpster. His heart pounds so hard it drowns out every other sound. He knows these streets better than they do. He takes a sharp left, then another, weaving through the maze of back streets until the sounds of pursuit start to fade. His arms ache, his lungs burn, but he doesn't stop until he reaches his front door. He kicks it open, staggering inside, the weight of Agent Stone finally pulling him to his knees. His mother's gasp echoes through the room, and his sister cries out in fear. But he doesn't speak. He just looks up, eyes wide, chest heaving. Help her. Would you have done the same in Jaden's situation? Let's talk about it. Jaden's mother is shocked when she sees him carrying an injured woman inside. Jaden staggers into the cramped living room, his breath heavy, his arms aching from the weight of the unconscious woman. Blood drips onto the worn-out rug beneath his feet. His mother, Monica, freezes. Her eyes widen, flicking between her son and the injured stranger. "Jaden, what have you done?" She gasps, rushing toward them. His younger sister, Ava, peeks from behind the couch, her face pale with fear. His father, Eric, still bandaged from the fire at work, struggles to stand from the recliner, his movements slow and pained. "Who is she?" he asks, his voice rough and wary. His father, still bandaged from the fire, warns that keeping her could bring trouble. Eric limps forward, his expression filled with concern. "Son, do you know what you've done? Bringing someone like that in here, it could put us all in danger." Jaden swallows hard, still catching his breath. He knows his father is right. He knows the people in the van wouldn't just let this go. But he also knows that leaving her out there, bleeding and helpless, wasn't an option. "I couldn't just leave her," he says, his voice firm despite the tremble in his hands. "They were trying to kill her, I saw it." Eric exhales slowly, rubbing his temples. "You don't even know who she is. What if she brings trouble to our door?" But Jaden refuses to leave her alone in the cold. Jaden squares his shoulders. "She needs help, Dad. I don't care who she is. I'm not letting her die." His mother looks at the unconscious woman, torn between fear and sympathy. She kneels beside her, pressing a cloth to the wound on her side. "She's burning up," she whispers. "We need to clean her wounds before she loses too much blood." Eric sighs heavily, but doesn't argue. He knows his son. Once Jaden makes up his mind, there's no changing it. "Lock the doors," he finally says, "and don't let anyone in." Through the night, he takes care of her, unaware of who she really is. Jaden stays by her side, watching her chest rise and fall unevenly. He helps his mother clean her wounds, dabbing away the dried blood, whispering reassurances that she cannot hear. Ava sits quietly on the couch, knees drawn to her chest, stealing glances at the woman wrapped in blankets on the floor. He wonders who she is, why those men wanted her dead, and what this means for him and his family. The next morning, police cars swarm the neighborhood. Jaden barely gets any sleep, his body tense, his mind racing. Just as dawn breaks, the sound of screeching tires makes his stomach drop. Red and blue lights flash through the thin curtains. The distant crackle of police radios sends a jolt of panic through the room. "Jaden!" His mother's voice is a whisper, full of dread. Heavy boots stomp up the front steps. Then bang, bang, bang. "Police! Open up!" Jaden barely has time to process what's happening before the front door bursts open. Officers flood the small home, their weapons drawn. "You!" "Hands behind your back!" An officer shouts at Jaden. Jaden's hands shoot up instinctively, his heart pounding in his chest. "Wait!" "I didn't." Before he can explain, rough hands yank him forward. Cold steel cuffs snap around his wrists. He stumbles, panic clawing up his throat. His mother screams, reaching for him, but an officer blocks her path. The world sees him as a suspect, not a hero. Jaden struggles against their grip, his eyes wild with confusion. "I was helping her. She was hurt," he shouts, but no one is listening. The officers only see a black boy in a poor neighborhood, standing over an injured woman. The truth doesn't matter. As they shove him toward the police car, he looks back one last time. His mother is crying. His father is frozen in shock. Ava is curled into herself, eyes filled with terror. And inside, the woman he saved is still unconscious. His only proof that he did the right thing. Why do some people assume the worst before knowing the truth? Drop your thoughts below. The agent lies on the cold pavement, barely conscious. Jaden's breath comes in short gasps as he kneels beside her. Blood stains the sidewalk, pooling beneath her as her fingers twitch weakly. Her lips part as if to speak, but no words come. The streetlights flicker above them, casting long shadows across the pavement. The world feels frozen, as if time itself is holding its breath. He knows he doesn't have much time to decide. Jaden's heart pounds. Should he run? Call for help? His hands shake as he glances around. The crowd is still frozen in shock, some murmuring, others recording on their phones, but no one is moving to help. The van is gone, its tires leaving black streaks on the asphalt. But what if it comes back? What if they're watching? His mind races, but deep down he knows help isn't coming. If he wants to save her, he has to act now. Instead, he makes a decision that will change his life forever. He moves quickly, lifting her as gently as he can. She groans, her eyes fluttering open for a second before rolling back. The weight of her body is more than he expected, but he grits his teeth and tightens his grip. His muscles burn as he hoists her up, cradling her against his chest. He doesn't know where to take her, only that staying here is not an option. He grabs the injured woman, carrying her towards an abandoned alley, away from danger. His feet move instinctively, one after the other, pushing forward. The cold air bites at his skin, but he barely feels it. The alley ahead is dark, barely visible under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. He stumbles over broken glass and discarded trash, his grip tightening around her. He has to keep going. He has to get her somewhere safe. The van screeches to a stop, but Jaden isn't waiting around. A chill shoots down his spine as he hears it. Tires screeching against the pavement. A car door slamming. He doesn't turn around. He doesn't hesitate. His feet hit the ground faster, pushing through the ache in his legs. The sound of footsteps echoes behind him, heavy and fast. They're coming. As gunshots ring out, he darts through back streets, bringing her to the only place he knows, home. The first shot shatters a glass bottle near his feet, sending shards scattering across the pavement. His breath catches, but he doesn't stop. He doesn't have time to be scared. Another shot rings out, sparking against a metal dumpster. His heart pounds so hard it drowns out every other sound. He knows these streets better than they do. He takes a sharp left, then another, weaving through the maze of back streets until the sounds of pursuit start to fade. His arms ache, his lungs burn, but he doesn't stop until he reaches his front door. He kicks it open, staggering inside, the weight of Agent Stone finally pulling him to his knees. His mother's gasp echoes through the room, and his sister cries out in fear. But he doesn't speak. He just looks up, eyes wide, chest heaving. Help her. His mother rushes forward, pressing a hand to the woman's forehead. She's burning up, she whispers, fear laced in her voice. Jaden's father, still weak from his injuries, pushes himself up from the chair. "What did you do?" he demands. But Jaden doesn't answer. He only watches as his mother begins to tend to the woman's wounds, knowing that the danger is far from over. The night stretches on in silence, tension thick in the air. The world outside is quiet, but Jaden knows it won't last. He saved her life, but at what cost? Would you have done the same in Jaden's situation? Let's talk about it. Inside the interrogation room, Jaden sits in silence. The room is small, the walls bare except for a large mirror reflecting his weary expression. His wrists ache from the tight handcuffs, his clothes still stained with blood. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows. The only sound is the ticking of a clock on the wall, each second stretching longer than the last. "You're in serious trouble, kid," an officer sneers, standing in front of him with arms crossed. "Did you attack that agent?" Jaden swallows hard, his throat dry. "No," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. But he knows they don't believe him. They never do. The officer leans closer, his breath hot and laced with coffee. "Lying won't help you. We have witnesses who saw you running with her in your arms. You think we don't know what's going on." Jaden's hands ball into fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "I was helping her," he protests, his voice stronger this time. "She was dying." Before Jaden can speak further, the door bursts open. The impact of the door hitting the wall startles both Jaden and the officer. Standing in the doorway is Agent Catherine Stone, her face pale, but her eyes burning with fury. She wears a hospital gown under a heavy coat, an IV still taped to her arm. "Are you arresting the boy who saved my life?" she demands, her voice slicing through the tension in the room. The officers freeze. Everything changes in an instant. The officer who had been interrogating Jaden stumbles backward, his confidence crumbling. "Agent Stone, we didn't realize—" "No, you didn't," she snaps, stepping further into the room. "I was unconscious, bleeding out, and this boy carried me to safety. He risked his life while everyone else stood around doing nothing. And instead of thanking him, you throw him in cuffs." Jaden watches in disbelief as the officers exchange guilty glances. The man who had just been grilling him now looks anywhere but at his face. A senior officer clears his throat. "Agent Stone, we were just trying to get the full story." "The full story," she repeats, her voice sharp. "Then let me make it simple for you. This boy is a hero. Now take those cuffs off." Jaden barely has time to process what's happening before an officer steps forward and removes the cold metal from his wrists. He rubs the sore spots on his skin, still too stunned to speak. Jaden is released, but the damage is done. As he stands, stretching his stiff limbs, a mix of emotions swirls inside him: relief, anger, exhaustion. The officers avoid his gaze as he follows Agent Stone out of the interrogation room. The weight of the night still lingers, pressing down on his shoulders. Outside, his mother and sister wait, their eyes red from crying. As soon as they see him, they rush forward, pulling him into their arms. His mother's grip is tight, as if she's afraid to let go. "I thought they'd take you away," she whispers against his ear. Jaden closes his eyes, feeling the warmth of her embrace. He may be free, but the truth still burns inside him. People like him aren't given the benefit of the doubt. He pulls back and meets Agent Stone's gaze. "Thank you," he says, his voice steady. She nods. "Number, thank you. Has anyone ever judged you unfairly? How did you prove them wrong? Let's discuss. Have you ever been in a moment where you had to act fast? Tell us your story." With the truth exposed, Jaden is hailed as a hero. The media catches on to the story quickly. News outlets broadcast footage of Agent Catherine Stone storming into the interrogation room, demanding Jaden's release. The headlines shift overnight, from portraying him as a suspect to celebrating him as the boy who saved an FBI agent's life. Reporters camp outside his home, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Strangers shake his hand when he walks down the street. But despite the sudden attention, Jaden doesn't feel like a hero. He just did what he knew was right. His quick thinking helped law enforcement identify the gang targeting Agent Stone. As soon as Jaden is freed, the FBI takes his statement. He recounts everything he remembers: the black van, the masked men, the license plate number he barely glimpsed before running. Every detail matters. Within hours, the FBI confirms that the men who tried to kill Stone are part of a notorious gang operating in Detroit. They had been under investigation for months, but Jaden's actions gave authorities the breakthrough they needed. But the danger isn't over. The gang is still out there. Jaden may be free, but he isn't safe. The people who tried to kill Agent Stone won't forget the boy who got in their way. Law enforcement warns his family that staying in their home is too risky. The threats are real, and if the gang discovers where he is, they won't hesitate to retaliate. Jaden's mother protests, tears in her eyes, but the FBI doesn't give them a choice. The FBI moves Jaden's family to a safe house while the case unfolds. 1 minute, Jaden is in the only home he has ever known. The next, he and his family are packed into an unmarked car, escorted by federal agents. The safe house is small but secure, far from the city, hidden from anyone looking for them. His father, still recovering from his injuries, struggles with the sudden upheaval. His mother barely sleeps, constantly worried about what comes next. Ava, his little sister, clings to him more than ever. As the investigation deepens, Jaden's sharp memory helps the agents crack the gang's operation. The FBI isn't just hiding Jaden. They're listening to him. They bring him in for questioning, not as a suspect, but as someone whose knowledge could help bring down a dangerous organization. His familiarity with Detroit's streets, his ability to recall details others might overlook, becomes an asset. He describes the van's movements, the escape routes the gang might use, even the way they carried themselves. Details only someone who had spent his life navigating the city would notice. His knowledge of Detroit streets proves invaluable. The agents listen closely, jotting down notes as Jaden speaks. They pull up maps, tracing possible hideouts based on his descriptions. His information leads them to surveillance footage they hadn't reviewed before. Piece by piece, the case against the gang strengthens, all because Jaden trusted what he saw and refused to stay silent. "You're braver than some agents I know," Catherine tells him. Jaden looks at her, surprised. He doesn't feel brave. He feels tired, overwhelmed, and more than anything, scared. But when he sees the way the agents treat him now, with respect, with trust, he realizes that what he did mattered. And for the first time, he wonders if maybe, just maybe, he was meant for more than just surviving. Do you think Jaden should get involved or stay out of danger? Let's talk about it. After weeks in hiding, the gang is taken down in a high-stakes FBI sting. The early morning raid is swift and calculated. Tactical teams storm the gang's known hideouts, breaching doors, taking down key members, and recovering crucial evidence. News stations broadcast the takedown, labeling it one of the most significant FBI operations in Detroit in years. Jaden watches from the safe house, heart pounding, as the faces of the men who once hunted him flash across the screen. It's over, or at least that's what they say. Jaden's courage helps prevent a major attack on Detroit's Federal Reserve. The FBI had been tracking the gang's movements for months, but it was Jaden's observations and quick thinking that led them to uncover the final piece of the puzzle. The gang had been planning an assault on the Federal Reserve, aiming to pull off one of the boldest heists in the city's history. If they had succeeded, the consequences would have been devastating. Thanks to Jaden, they never got the chance. His family receives a financial reward, enough to cover medical bills and secure a new home. The government steps in, offering Jaden's family compensation for the role he played in the case. The money is more than they ever expected. It clears his father's hospital bills, pays off lingering debts, and, most importantly, gives them the chance to move somewhere safe. For the first time in years, they don't have to worry about eviction notices or empty kitchen cabinets. They can finally breathe. Yet, Jaden can't shake the feeling that this isn't over. He should feel relieved, maybe even happy, but something lingers at the edge of his mind. He's seen too much, knows too much about how dangerous the world really is. The gang may be dismantled, but there are always more like them. He wonders if one day he'll look over his shoulder and see someone watching. If his name is still whispered in places he'll never hear. Before Catherine leaves, she hands him something, a card. He looks down at it. The FBI seal stamped in the corner, her name printed in bold letters. "You ever see something suspicious, you call me," she says, her tone firm but kind. There's something in her eyes, not pity, but understanding. She knows what it's like to live in a world where danger never really disappears. Jaden watches her go, realizing his life is forever changed. As the sun sets behind the skyline, he grips the card tightly. He's not the same boy who once wandered the streets looking for odd jobs to save his family. He's seen what happens when people look away, when no one steps up. Maybe that's why, deep down, he knows that if the moment ever comes again, if someone needs help, if justice needs to be served, he won't hesitate. Would you ever want to help in an FBI investigation? Let's talk in the comments.